Welcome back to the NutriMedical Report. Joining us after a little hiatus, Professor James McCanney. Professor McCanney, your website is jmccsci.com. jmccsci.com. You're the expert and primary teacher of the Plasma Universe, the electrical universe theory, and there's tons of evidence to prove it. We talked on the break. The primary thing is you mentioned it's like an ocean of comets coming in. We're in basically a wave period where there's a lot of them. This is the NASA year of the comet, 3 of them. The next one coming in is called Comet Lemon. And the ISON one is the one that's most concerning, that's going to pass in close to the sun in early November. There was a paper you mentioned last time before the show today that was published in Israel that suggests if a, quote, comet struck the sun, it would cause a big coronal mass ejection. But according to your theory, it doesn't have to hit the sun. It just has to pass close enough to cause a discharge. The comet theory of extinction level events is a big deal because it's far more likely than an impact, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And NASA has always concentrated on, well, it's got to hit. And, you know, the biggest events in history, nothing hit at all. You know, the issue is that if you only talk about things that hit, then you can also say, oh, they're little. And so, and also there's something that I've learned, and that the NASA models for so-called extinction level events from direct hits are way, way overestimated. And the reason is because the Earth is very pliable. On a large scale, it's like a big ball of sand. And so when something hits, most of that energy is absorbed very locally. There were studies done on that, the Chilub, it's called, crater off of Yucatan. And what they discovered is they actually studied the dinosaur before and after that crater was made from whatever created it. And they said that not a single dinosaur species went extinct before and after that event. In that area, let alone the rest of the world. So that was not the cause of the dinosaur extinction. And the other thing is, when you look at extinction events, it's not just something hit the Earth. You're looking at mountain building. You're looking at ocean level changes. You're looking at volcanic activity worldwide. You're talking about things that affect the entire world. And so these are only can happen from something big passing by, and that's why there's a lot greater chance of something big passing near, or what I call action at a distance. But they don't want to talk about that. And now, just quickly going back to that article, it was published a couple of weeks ago. Some author out of Israel publishing in one of the astrophysics journals, now suggesting that an ice ball can hit the sun and cause a major electromagnetic wave that can take out our electric grid system, which is absurd. I mean, the physics here, where is it? Their model of the sun is that the nuclear reaction of the sun is at the core. So how is an ice ball hitting the upper atmosphere of the sun going to cause shock waves down to the core, which are going to send electromagnetic waves out to us and kill us? You know, it's so absurd, but see, they got to have something on the books to try and take away my thunder, which I've been saying all along, showing that comets, we have thousands of examples of comets coming near the sun, snap, you see that spark plug electrical discharge, and boom, out comes the big flare. But they can't have that action at a distance. They won't touch it. So here they got some guy that they get, some pawn that they can stick up there, publish an article, put it in an astrophysics journal, and say that now they can claim, and this is after decades of denial, that there could be no effect from comets on the sun. So you can see they're getting ready. They are getting ready. And, of course, the comet that's going to come near the sun is Comet ISON, which is another anomaly. They say that the nucleus is like, I've seen estimates from 5 kilometers to 25, which is really pretty small. Yet they're saying that they're already predicting that after it goes through the solar atmosphere, it will become the biggest comet in history. Well, based on what? You know, clearly they're lying.
Yeah, you made estimates that the comet may be as large as 2,600 kilometers across the current.
Yeah, there's so many strange things about that comet. They announced it through the ISON Institute in Russia, the same institute that announced Comet Elenin, by the way, and all of that hoopla, but which was total false information. But this comet they announced September 21st, 2012, which is the fall equinox. And I thought, what a strange date to announce this. But clearly they had to make an announcement because some amateur was going to discover this comet. So they made the announcement so they could control the information. But I feel they've been watching this baby for 10 years. You know, and you were just talking about comets coming into the solar system. So that means that they would have known the size of this nucleus, a lot of the properties of the nucleus. They know I'm right about the plasma discharge comet model. And so the end result is they had gone through all of the predictions of this coming around the sun and then becoming a big comet. Well, how's a little 5-mile across snowball supposed to become the biggest comet in history? It's not coming close to us, 37 million miles away. None of what they're saying adds up. It doesn't make any sense at all. So clearly, NASA is doing damage control here. 8 months before.
The interesting thing is that what they're doing too is they're trying to spin it because what I think is they suspect this could be potentially an extinction level event. And I think they're terrified that they're not going to maintain control if things are going to fly apart, which is part of the reason why I want to connect it to the Homeland Security Department, DHS. We're going to have actually a former Marine MP on. We'll just use his first name, Jay. He's actually going to be in studio with me. And Jay's going to ask some questions because I think the link is a lot of the behavior of the international banks, including an announcement I made in the first hour that the Canadian banks have now announced they're going to do similar control of bank funds as Cyprus. I don't know if they're going to be as serious, but apparently they're announced in the public media. The buy of millions upon tens of hundreds of millions of bullets, especially the hollow point bullets, suggests that we have a government out of control. You know, when you're buying tens of thousands of armored personnel carriers and tanks, when you're bringing foreign troops on American soil and training them, down in Mexico, by the way, they're training with Chinese and United Nations troops on, quote, rescue missions into America, which is basically an invasion with American troops and training. We know there's something very weird planned. And I believe that the globalists expect some kind of extinction level event, and they want to do whatever they're going to do before that event happens because they're afraid that they're going to lose control if they lose their power grid and their satellite communications. That's what my suspicion is. Oh, yeah.
I think exactly you're right on. And one thing I've always said, I've kind of analyzed this. And, okay, they're going to bring in a foreign army to control this country, but any guy that's a leader that has half a brain would know that army can then turn on them and take over. And so those people are going to come in here with a virus, and they're only going to be here for a week or two, and then they're all going to die. You see what I'm saying? And then how do you supply this, 2-3 million man army, this wave that comes in? There's no way in this big country to supply it. A little country like Germany or France, maybe you could possibly supply them. But in this country, I mean, you're not going to get supplies to central New York City, buddy. So the only...
Yeah, it's not going to happen, yeah. The troops will die basically it's like dying on the vine. And also the Americans are, you're dealing with the people that have already been bred, filtered out, and we are the, how can I say it, the most unlikely to be dominated people on the planet.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I think so.
They're picking a fight with the wrong people is what they're doing. Is they think they're going to get away with this. They're crazy. But I think that they know something bad is coming, and I think your scientific theories explain some hard endpoints that they're working against.
Oh, absolutely.
Welcome back, and I want to connect a few dots here. And we're going to have joining us Jay, one of the former Marine MPs and an expert with all his buddies in the military on DHS and their actions. What I'd like to do is a doctor who has worked as a civilian on contract with government agencies, working on highly classified projects, working with Delta Force, working with the Federal Center in Denver, working on Operation Top Off and Dark Winter, U.S. Space Command, Strategic Defense, Star Wars, not working on the projects, but talking to all the people there. And because I have a close to photographic memory and advanced training in technological areas, I absorbed all this stuff like a sponge. And I cross-correlated over all the many years now I've been on this radio network show, and previously I did one on Clear Channel back in Denver before I even closed my practice. It was actually called Laughter's the Best Medicine. But once in a while we'd foray into these kind of areas. And what I'm saying is we have the brilliant Professor McCanney giving us a clear idea that there's some endpoints in terms of galactic and solar weather, especially comets. And we have the danger of a civilization-ending event that could happen. And we have a government, like just today, I got in the Washington Times, UN passed a sweeping international arms regulation viewed by some as Second Amendment override. What the heck do they think they're doing to grab people's Second Amendment rights? Just pop this on there. There you go. To grab people's Second Amendment rights. What do they think they're doing? Jay's arrived a couple minutes early. And how does it tie in with what you think? Because, Professor McCanney, you've done some very neat series on History Channel 2 recently, dealing with space weather, dealing with comets. What's your thesis? Does anything I'm saying make some sense in terms of what the government's doing, what DHS, which Obama's doing? I mean, this is really hard for people to grasp, but it really is happening.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I've always said that when you start to see the real end game, the banks closing in, taking personal resources, which is really the end game.
Yeah, well, Canada just announced this morning they're going to do similar controls of people with access to their bank accounts today. The United Nations just passes a sweeping international arms treaty, and Obama says he's going to sign it this week and will approve it, whether or not the Senate approves the bill or not, which is basically constitutional law. That alone should impeach Obama, but he seems to be bulletproof. Nobody's impeaching the maniac, and we have a government now that's passing laws in Connecticut that virtually any kind of gun that takes a clip. I talked to Larry Pratt of Gun Owners of America, who'll be on next week, and the government are on a jihad. That's the words they actually, news media are saying. Obama's on the jihad, and of course because he's a Muslim, to take away people's guns. And I can tell you, it seems like they want to inflame the situation to cause a civil war. They're just drooling for it because, I mean, I'm not exaggerating here when I see the banks grabbing up to 60% to 100% of people's money in Cyprus. And then there's a list of 147 names of people that got advance notice and pulled their money out months before. This situation means anybody that's a depositor in the Western world, whether in Europe or Canada or the United States, Australia, New Zealand, anywhere, is no longer safe from international banking. And if they're going to try to grab the guns, it means whatever they're planning on doing is so horrendous with the collapse of our food supply. We had the worst drought in American history except for the Dust Bowl of the 1930s. We have collapse of food supplies and crops literally virtually everywhere on the planet. And people don't grasp that we're in the middle of a currency war, a food crisis, a galactic and space weather. It's way out of control. The weather is up and down like a yo-yo. All the seasons are mixed up, which is not good for growing food. And we have a government that says, well, we want to disarm you because of the kids in Newton, Connecticut, when in fact having more guns and having armed guards in school will make them safer. But instead they want to disarm citizens when a criminal can always get a gun, even a mentally ill person. In fact, one of the things I mentioned is if we had a registry to protect citizens so that we could truly report people who are, quote, mentally ill and have a way of people finding out if they're on a list and getting removed. But the problem is the government doesn't want to give up the idea of a federal gun registry. They want to subvert the authority of the sheriff. They want to subvert the ability of citizens to arm themselves with whatever they damn well please. And when a military person is discharged with a fully automatic or semi-automatic weapon, it's nobody's business to try to say because they have lost a limb or they have temporary depression because they're adjusting, that now they're no longer capable of handling a weapon, especially training someone else in it. I think this is a sign that the government is no longer our government, that we are dealing with a civilization that literally is on the verge of collapse, and the globalists and the people that run it, which are primarily bankers, know there's an extinction level event coming, and they're doing everything in their power to maintain control before the disaster strikes.
Yeah, what I've always said is it'll be a natural disaster of basically of cosmic scale, And then you see all of these other events, because they've been preparing for years